Hollywood has always glittered on the surface, but behind the red carpets and flashing cameras lies a world most could never imagine. One man dared to step into the shadows, exposing truths that terrified the powerful and challenged the faithful. Genius or madness, saint or sinner, Mel Gibson walked a path few would survive. From whispers of devilish powers in Hollywood to blood-soaked biblical epics that shocked the world, and from accusations of hate to encounters that defy belief, his story is one of fame, faith, and fury. Tonight, we peel back the curtain and confront the dark truths that almost destroyed him, and the revelations that still haunt Hollywood today. He once repeated a line that still sends chills down the spine of anyone who hears it. Women on film, either naked or dead, both is better. Over the years, Hollywood's darkest secrets have stopped being whispers and slowly entered public conversation. What once sounded like wild conspiracy has begun to feel disturbingly plausible. Allegations, scandals, and testimonies have peeled back the glossy surface of the entertainment industry, revealing a world far more disturbing than audiences were ever meant to see. At one point, even Mel Gibson himself seemed overwhelmed by what he was witnessing. He later recalled thinking, "Oh no, Christopher Walken is the Antichrist." A bizarre statement, one that would become symbolic of how deeply unsettling his experiences in Hollywood had become. But speaking out came at a cost. In 2004, Mel Gibson wrote and directed The Passion of the Christ, one of the most controversial films ever released by a major Hollywood figure. By that time, Gibson had already become entangled in rumors, conspiracies, and industry backlash. Strange events followed him as his fame grew, and the higher he climbed, the more resistance he seemed to face. What truly set him apart, however, was that he stood his ground. He insisted on making a film about the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ, an unflinching, brutal portrayal that shocked audiences worldwide and deeply unsettled Hollywood itself. The film was not just a commercial risk, it was a spiritual and cultural provocation. And today, we're going to examine exactly why that decision, and many others, changed everything for Mel Gibson. Shout out to Patrick Cease. Whether he was calling out predatory Hollywood elites or criticizing world leaders, Gibson refused to stay silent. He spoke openly on topics most celebrities wouldn't dare touch. That refusal made him enemies in powerful places. As a result, he was labeled many things: homophobic, anti-Semitic, racist, abusive, unstable, Chinese letter, outright insane. Those labels followed him relentlessly, costing him major roles and nearly erasing him from Hollywood altogether. For most people, public humiliation is their greatest fear. Mel Gibson had already lived through it. "I don't give up anymore," he once said. "I'm not afraid of humiliation, I've had plenty of it." And yet, after his recent appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, public perception began to shift. Suddenly, people weren't just dismissing him, they were listening. Many described him as existing at the intersection of genius and madness. Others called him one of the few Hollywood actors who still spoke with something resembling truth. Today, we're going to analyze the controversies that shattered Mel Gibson's reputation, and why some now believe those same controversies may reveal something far more unsettling about Hollywood itself. It begins with a 1998 interview, one where Gibson may have crossed an invisible line. During a discussion about women in film, Gibson recalled a conversation with a powerful producer. He never named names, but the sentiment was chilling. He said the producer's entire philosophy about women on screen could be summed up in one sentence: "Women on film, either naked or dead, both is better." While Gibson never confirmed who he was referring to, many speculate it could have been Harvey Weinstein. Just a few years later, Weinstein produced Frida, during which Salma Hayek alleged that he demanded she perform a same-sex nude scene in order to complete the film. According to her account, full frontal nudity was non-negotiable. Even if one disputes specific allegations, the culture itself is undeniable. Get naked, get nominated became a dark joke in Hollywood, one rooted in a disturbing reality. For women in film, success often came with an unspoken price. Compromise your values, cross your boundaries, do things you know you shouldn't just to gain fame, fortune, or a seat at the table. And statistically, the pattern is hard to ignore. In the past 37 years, only 2 Best Actress Oscar winners had never appeared nude on screen: Cher in 1987 and Michelle Yeoh in 2023. While the roles that earned them their awards weren't necessarily nude performances, the fact remains, roughly 95% of winners had appeared nude at some point in their careers. That alone raises an uncomfortable question. Is this an expectation imposed by the elite? For Mel Gibson, Hollywood eventually made one thing clear. Ordinary life was far more appealing than the illusion of glamour on the red carpet. He was never an insider to begin with. Born as one of 11 siblings in the Hudson Valley of New York, Gibson's life took a sharp turn when his father moved the family to Sydney, Australia. There, Mel studied theater and performance while taking small acting roles. His breakthrough came in 1979 with the low-budget Australian film Mad Max. Made for just $350,000, Mad Max earned over $100 million worldwide, setting a Guinness World Record as the most profitable film ever at the time. A sequel followed, widely regarded as one of the greatest sequels in cinema history. By 1985, Gibson was a rising star. In Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, he earned $1 million, an enormous sum at the time. But in 1987, he made a decision that would change everything. He moved to Los Angeles. Almost immediately, he felt something was wrong. He later described feeling paranoid, unsettled, confused by behaviors no one could or would explain. Hollywood felt like a strange town from a horror movie, a place where strangers fell silent when you entered the room, a place where warnings were whispered. Don't go into that house on the hill. At first, he told himself it was paranoia. Later, he realized it was. He would eventually say that some of his worst nightmares about Hollywood turned out to be true. Because when people like Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein are running the show, nothing should be surprising. Despite his unease, Gibson stayed. That same year, he starred in Lethal Weapon, a film that launched him into A-list superstardom. It became the 8th highest-grossing film of 1987 and spawned an iconic 4-film franchise. Throughout the 1980s, Gibson generated nearly $900 million at the global box office. In the 1990s, his success placed him among the top 10 highest-earning actors of the decade, ahead of stars like Jim Carrey and Tom Cruise. His hits included Ransom, Pocahontas, where he voiced John Smith, The Patriot, and of course, Braveheart. Released in 1995, Braveheart was both directed by Gibson and starred him as William Wallace. The film was a massive success, earning 4 times its budget and delivering some of the most iconic lines in cinema history. They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom. The film swept the Oscars, winning Best Picture, Best Director, and several technical awards. At the peak of his power, when most celebrities would protect their status at all costs, Gibson did the opposite. He spoke freely. In a 1995 Playboy interview, he openly criticized world leaders and suggested the existence of a hidden ruling class, a shadow government operating behind the scenes. He described Bill Clinton as a front man, claiming real power never shows its face. He referenced Rhodes Scholars, secret influence, and global political manipulation. At the time, he sounded unhinged. Today, many say he sounded early. His ideas mirror modern discussions about the deep state, political puppets, and billionaire oligarchs influencing governments through money and power. Then came the moment that made even his supporters uneasy. A story about Christopher Walken. Gibson described meeting Walken on a rooftop in New York. As he told it, Walken seemed to float sideways through a crowd, gliding rather than walking, dressed entirely in black, like something out of a vampire film. The conversation turned dark. They discussed medieval torture methods, attempting to outdo each other with the most horrifying details imaginable. The atmosphere grew so disturbing that Gibson's assistant left, unable to tolerate it. The air felt cold, heavy. At one point, Gibson turned away and noticed a building illuminated with a glowing red, 666. When he looked back, Walken was smiling. That's when the thought crossed his mind. Oh no, Christopher Walken is the Antichrist. Absurd, maybe. But in a town built on illusion, symbolism, and power, Mel Gibson's experiences raise a question that refuses to go away. Was he crazy, or did he simply see too much? Mel Gibson often toes the line between brilliance and absolute madness, recounting events with such precision that it's impossible not to believe him, at least in part. When he spoke about Christopher Walken, one question lingers. Did Gibson truly believe Walken possessed some supernatural, almost devilish abilities? Or was he merely describing a strange, intense encounter, perhaps referencing Walken's 1993 film True Romance, where the actor famously declares, "I am the Antichrist"? But Gibson's fascination with the darker corners of Hollywood didn't stop there. In interviews, he described the industry as a place that could humiliate, crush, or humble anyone who dared enter its walls. He spoke of an environment that ripped your life to pieces if you let it. He conjured an image of little, soulless figures, horned and malicious, hammering at the foundations of your existence, symbolic perhaps, but indicative of the psychological toll of Hollywood's cruelty. Of course, Gibson didn't literally meet horned trolls, yet his words echoed centuries-old fears. Stories of secret societies, satanic rituals, and ritual abuse have haunted human history, from the Roman Empire to the European witch hunts of the 15th through 17th centuries. In the United States, widespread panic about Satanism erupted during the 1980s, spurred largely by Hollywood's dark imagery in films like The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby. Even heavy metal bands such as Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, and Iron Maiden were accused of promoting demonic influence, with obsessive listeners playing their tracks backward to uncover hidden messages. To most, these stories were merely folklore, but to Gibson, living at the center of what many deemed a demonic landscape, they became deeply personal. It compelled him to act, to make his allegiances known to the world through his work and his faith. By the early 2000s, Mel Gibson seemed unstoppable. What Women Want, Chicken Run, and Signs became multi-million-dollar hits back-to-back. His trajectory toward the Hollywood top 10 was clear. And then came 2004, the year that would define him both for glory and controversy. That year, he wrote and directed The Passion of the Christ, a harrowing depiction of the final 12 hours in the life of Jesus of Nazareth. Upon its release, the film provoked polarizing reactions. Critics denounced its brutality, arguing that the torture and suffering were excessive. But for believers, it illuminated the unimaginable depth of Christ's suffering. Gibson himself explained his intent in interviews. Of course it was too much. That was the point. The mystery of suffering, the sacrifice of the Lamb. If it were easy, it wouldn't mean anything. He drew inspiration from previous biblical films, yet sought to take the narrative further, darker, grittier, more visceral. While the film's biblical accuracy was debated, depicting Satan as a woman and emphasizing Mary Magdalene's presence more than the text warrants, Gibson's goal was clear: to create an immersive, transformative experience. Yet some saw it as controversial to the point of being offensive. Organizations working to fight anti-Semitism condemned the film, asserting that it reinforced harmful stereotypes of Jewish culpability in the death of Jesus, a claim that, over centuries, had led to unspeakable violence, even inspiring the Holocaust. Despite, or perhaps because of, the controversy, the film was a staggering commercial success. Made for just $30 million, it grossed over $600 million worldwide, holding the record for the highest-grossing R-rated film for years. It also sparked renewed interest in faith, inspiring church attendance and prompting countless viewers to reflect on spirituality. Gibson's personal life, however, soon collided violently with public perception. In the early hours of July 28, 2006, he was pulled over in Malibu for speeding, driving 87 miles per hour in a 45 mph zone. Police found an open bottle of tequila, and his blood alcohol level measured 0.2%, more than twice the legal limit. The encounter escalated quickly. Gibson reportedly threatened the officer, proclaiming he owned Malibu and would spend everything he had to retaliate. He unleashed a torrent of anti-Semitic remarks, blaming Jews for wars and global strife. The incident made headlines worldwide, cementing his reputation as a volatile, dangerous figure. Gibson's fascination with the occult and conspiracy didn't stop with Hollywood or his own experiences. Around the same time, the public became obsessed with the supposed spirit-cooking emails from Hillary Clinton's private server. Among them were messages between John Podesta and artist Marina Abramovic, referencing performances described as spirit cooking, involving cryptic recipes written in pig's blood. These events became fodder for conspiracy theorists, who connected them to Hollywood elites and high-profile celebrities like Jay-Z, Beyoncé, and Lady Gaga. Whether the events were innocuous performance art or something darker remains a matter of debate. But Gibson's worldview seems to exist comfortably within that gray area, where the boundaries between artistic spectacle and real-world malevolence blur. Today, Gibson speaks differently. He frames the world as a battlefield for human souls, spiritual realms of good and evil locked in a struggle over humanity itself. He asks profound, unsettling questions. Why should flawed, mortal humans matter in this cosmic war? Why are we the focus of forces far beyond our understanding? In a Hollywood climate now hyperpoliticized, where silence is condemned and vocal stances are expected, Gibson remains defiant. He recognizes the brokenness of the world, the pervasive anxiety and the ever-present fear, and yet he continues to speak his truth even when it alienates, frightens, or enrages. Mel Gibson's story is one of contradictions: genius and madness, faith and fury, devotion and destruction. He remains one of the few who dares to pull back the curtain and expose the shadows lurking behind Hollywood's glimmering facade. If you want to explore the full story, including all the controversial and untold details, check out the complete video in the description. And tell us your thoughts. What do you make of Gibson's journey through fame, faith, and infamy?